Salam alaikum.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I'm going to try this. Please bear with me. Mickaeel Collier. Mickaeel Collier. Bear with me, you're going to teach me afterwards, inshallah. Inshallah. Oku, nkiklazo, ukuba, andikwazi, ukuteta, kuni isikoza, nteto yam yonke. How's it? Alright. Ndiche layo okuba, ukoncheda, abu kuti bai azikutazi, inkubeko, yasiku klaneni, kunye nilwime. I don't know, I was practicing, it sounded easier when I was practicing than standing here, inshallah. But we need to try, and just to translate that, it says, welcome to this meeting, and by the way, that was Google translating. It is with shame that I cannot speak to you in Kosa, my entire presentation. I ask you to help us, those of us who have not embraced our local culture and languages adequately. So inshallah, we commit ourselves. We've spoken with Sheikh Ismail Kamani to run certain programs with us here in Cape Town, and that is the amana that Sheikh has accepted on our behalf, inshallah. No, but that man can speak many different languages. He even speaks Arabic, Sheikh Bilal, that you would not be able to understand. Very quickly, our presentation on Awqaf today. I think Awqaf has traveled the length and breadth of these stakeholder meetings, and therefore the presentations, previous presentations would be much more in-depth. But just for the purposes of those who are attending for the first time, what is Waqf? Waqf is a pious endowment. It is a sadaqah jariyah. We like to mention that within the type of Islamic social finance, there are two forms of relief mechanisms. The one is the zakah, which we all know is compulsory, and the waqf forms part of the sunnah, the voluntary form of Islamic social finance. Waqf is encouraged. It is a sunnah that was practiced by the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam after certain ayats of the Quran have been revealed. And within the history of Islam, each and every Sahaba actually dedicated a small portion of their wealth to establishing a waqf, or endowment fund. It is a means of sustainable community development. But most importantly, if we analyze waqf in our context of today, it is a mechanism for the redistribution of wealth within our community. It is the Muslim Community Development Fund, and it is funds our projects as a community in a sustainable way. So today what we would like to present to you is something that was developed at the KwaNobuhle stakeholders meeting in Utenay, and that is the Community Development Waqf Fund. And Muslim Views has graciously printed, I think in this next edition, Uncle Farid, an article that's in more depth with regard to this Community Development Waqf Fund. So how the fund basically works is that a community trust, a waqf, is formed. Awqaf South Africa will contribute some seed funding, start up the waqf with a particular community. The community then contributes itself towards the fund on a regular basis. Each donor would have his or her own personal waqf account with Awqaf SA as a sub-account of the community trust. Awqaf SA undertakes to match the contributions made by certain local communities who have been part of this particular program, obviously to a limit that we can manage. Ideally, the waqf capital of such a fund should be in excess of about 2 million rand for each community waqf. The community will therefore receive immediately within year 1 a dividend of around 10%, which is 200,000 per annum. That would increase over time. The community will be able to take care of many of the expenses as a result of the self-sustainability mechanism that we hope, inshallah, to build into each of our communities. Issues of salaries, wages, upkeep of the masajid, programs, clinics, etc. could all be facilitated out of this particular fund. The executive committee of the community trust, or the Waqf, and this is very important, appoints its own Waqf mutawalli. So it is not that we're coming into a community and saying that we are taking over or accepting full responsibility of that particular community. We need to work with each other, in partnership with each other, so that your particular concerns and needs of your particular community are met, inshallah. In this way, we also promote adequate checks and balances, and there's a level of transparency that is maintained. On a long-term and ongoing basis, the members of the community are conscientized about the Waqf system, the sustainability mechanism that Islam introduced, or the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam introduced over 1437 years ago. It becomes part of the culture of that community and further enhances the well-being of that community. As more communities join, inshallah, we will see the positive effects of it. So instead of us looking at the macro, a big picture of the challenges that is facing our community, the Community Waqf Development Fund localizes our concerns and our issues and allows the community, in partnership with other role players, to take control of the development of that particular community. We just have a very short graphic of what the 2 million rand can look like after a period of 50 years. And as we know, the Waqf stays intact, it doesn't get used, the capital can never be lost, but the return of the investment is used for the development and the growth of the community. We've done this on a very, very minimal figure, a very conservative figure of 7.25%, although in Awqaf South Africa we like to reach investment returns of above 10 and 11%. So in year 1, sorry if the couches may just be in the way, but I'll read it out to you. With an investment of 2 million, after 1 year, you would have, call it a 10% return of about 200,000. In year 5, you will have a capital base of 2.8 million, an annual capital growth of 183,000, an annual income of 190,000, which makes it a cumulative income of 833,000 rand. That's after 5 years. After 10 years, your Waqf fund would have grown to about just under 4 million, and you'd have had a cumulative income of about 2 million rand. That's after 10 years. After 30 years, your capital, just under 2 million, without increasing and plowing more money into that particular fund, works on, the capital would sit at about 15 million, and your cumulative income would be about 13.5 million. After 50 years, you're looking at, from the initial 2 million rand, taking into consideration inflation and all these factors, you would look at a capital growth of 59 million, with a cumulative income of also around 59 million rand. So in our minds, there's no other alternative for sustainability to be built into our community except through the prophetic system of Waqf. And we've got various examples in the history of the heights of Islamic civilization where people were no longer recipients of zakah. In Turkey, interestingly, with the happenings of last night, the Ottoman Empire, 60% of agricultural land was in the hands of the Waqf system. The government, or the Khalif at the time, the Sultan, only looked after two things. He looked after law and order, the judiciary, and he looked after the military. Everything else, roads, water, electricity, stormwater, bridal Waqfs, that was all looked after and catered by civil society. people plowed of their money into particular waqfs, and as the capital of that particular growth stayed intact, the returns were used for looking after the sick people, burying people. And there was a saying that one person wrote, based on his research, he said, the husband and wife would get married and they would get a stipend out of the waqf system to live for 2 years, right? A free house, even a wedding dress. They would then have a baby, and the baby would be born in a waqf hospital. And that child would then go to a waqf madrasa, right? It would then go to a waqf school, a waqf university. When they got sick, went to a waqf clinic, and eventually died in a waqf cemetery, in a maqbara. So somebody's entire life was part, or at least was in the waqf system. And we see that this is the only way for us to address the issues of the high inequalities that is challenging our communities. The protest demonstrations that is currently taking place is not about politics. It's about the fact that we live in an unequal society. We live in a society of two tales, where we have the opulence of the Constantias and the Camps base, and then we have the terrible conditions in Marikana, just down the road from here. Within 5 kilometers from our centers, we experience as people two different realities of life. And inshallah, through this particular system and the foresight that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had, we need to reintroduce this concept, and we need to repopularize this waqf concept as a means of our community development. Shukran very much, and please, whoever Kosa teaches, we are ready for that. And forgive me if I said anything that wasn't supposed to be said.